I cannot tell you what a joy it is to be here. And thank you, Erwin. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Fred. This is going to be, like Javier, another report from the front lines on how the new paradigm can work its way into business. I wanted Scott here when I was doing this because what we do comes out of our own knowing each other for 30 years. And we have both very much, along with Davide, enjoyed the warm welcome that you've given us. And my experience of being here is that I have met several of you before. I met Stefan 25 years ago, reading your books. I met Raymond 40 years ago, reading Life After Life. Urban, I met you when I was doing my doctorate, reading your work. And I remembered when I saw your name, Stuart, that I read some of yours and Sir Roger's stuff. What I want to share with you is that there we go. No. Like we'll take Anne Marie's thing. You sing into this and Davide will push it up. Where Scott and I are working with businesses is all the way down at what the Brits would call the coal face, which is the one activity that makes business flourish. It can't flourish without it, which is what happens in a conversation between two people. Salesperson and a customer, a manager and a direct report, a colleague and another. The quality of that interaction determines everything, doesn't it? I happen to believe this is built into the nature of the universe. You might call them particle and wave. And when they do something well, if you listen carefully, I think you can hear me. Scott and I started what we're now doing after years of my work in transformational learning and change, and his work in sales and leadership and business development. We started it because we saw a fatal flaw in this relationship, especially between salesperson and customer. And you know the fatal flaw. If I were to ask you, when you think of sales, salespeople, selling, what word associations come to mind? What you hear inside is the old paradigm of selling, which is that selling is the dark art of talking people into buying stuff they neither need nor want. And it comes right out of a paradigm in business that profit is what matters. And when that happens, salespeople live in an inhumane environment that is so hard on the soul. And sales turns into a continual exercise of pitching, manipulating, and above all, winning. And in 2009, when we looked at this, we saw that it gets even worse. Because not only are salespeople caught in that one, not only caught in that activity, they're also caught in what Gurdjieff would call a profound state of sleep, which means that they are locked in to automatic behavior in a system that is both external and internal. And when we saw that, from our experience as entrepreneurs and businessmen, from my experience in transformational learning and change, we saw a problem that was worth getting up in the morning. And what we decided is that we needed a technology, thanks Davide, and a technology that had several characteristics. One is it had to be simple. Simple. It had to be sound. Something that would stand up because of the science and the thinking that so many of you have done for so long. It has to be aligned all the way down. And it has to be transformative. Maurizio, your point, that unless learning and training becomes experiential, it does not stick. When we're training, we let people know that the sort of training we're doing must be caught, not taught. Theory has somehow got to find its way into the sort of education that we give our children when we teach them to ride a bike. How many of you have done that? You remember how you taught your children to ride a bike? You put them on a hopefully grassy slope. You hold on to the seat. And if you haven't been a prayer in your life, you become one. That they somehow teach themselves before you have a stroke. But once learned, how many of you once learned to ride a bike? How many of you have not ridden a bike in a while? But how many of you are very confident that given enough room, you could get on it and do it? That is because once you learn to ride a bike, you have a type of knowledge that does not go away. That is the sort of training we're doing. And I believe needs to be done if transformation is going to happen. So, we started with a frame for our work that Scott developed back in 1988 when he came to a training that I was doing on the management of one's mind. And he developed this formula that all results, for the moment we can say sales results, hard numbers in sales, revenue, gross margin, net margin, all results are a function of three things. The attitude and the mindset of that seller in that two-person conversation, as well as the buyer. The competence that the seller brings to that. And their capacity to execute in a way that we all know has been called flow. It takes all three of those things for a seller to be able to do. To navigate that conversation in a way that something magical can happen. But for that to happen, so what we did is we developed 7, next one, thank you Davide, 7 core practices about the management of the mind. The ability to notice when your mind and attitude slip into anxiety or fear or manipulation, and to, while you're working in the moment, raise it back up again. The ability to rewire your brain, to make the changes you need to make. The competence to have a conversation that goes to committed action over and over again. And a new paradigm for selling called DQ sales, which is the one of these that I will have time to explain. And then how to execute in a way that you stay in flow, which is a process of going from aiming this magnificent biocomputer in our head to tracking what you're doing, to setting up iterative processes for learning so that the process continues to flow. And we needed as well one additional practice that would allow people to wake up and access what we call their natural brilliance, and which I recently read in an autobiography was also phrased as simply genius. Gurdjieff had the practice, the fundamental practice. Neuroplasticity provided the intellectual rigor, and the first scientific explanation I had as to why things I've been involved in for the last 50 years actually worked, changed people. So I would like to share this practice with you, if that would be all right. It is a surprise to every salesperson we meet, or almost everyone. It will not be a surprise to you. The practice is called split attention. We stole it from Gurdjieff, bless his heart. And let me just show you how to do it. We showed a number of you already in private conversations. But right now you have your attention on me. Keep your attention on me. And at the same time, place part of your attention, that is to say, also become aware. Maybe this part of your body right here. And what you can feel when you inhale is that this part of your body pushes out just a little bit. And then when you exhale, it comes back in again. Now, if you can, and of course you can, do both. Pay primary attention to me, have a strong secondary attention to feeling a full breath come in and move your body. There's a little pause right at the end of the inhale, don't miss it. And then an exhale as your body comes back in again. This doesn't have to be breath alone. When we teach it, I also teach what I do when I'm talking, as I learned a long time ago to hold this part of my body steady when I spoke so that I didn't lose my voice. So what I do when I'm talking is I have 80% of my attention on you. You can do the next slide. And I've got my 20% of attention on my fingers right here touching. And I find that if I can stay aware of you and this at the same time, what do you notice? Give me some description. Presence. Calmness.
Tranquility.
I missed it?
Tranquility.
Tranquility.
Perspective.
Perspective. Objectivity. What happens to your sense of hearing? Opens. Those of you that are especially visual will find that all of a sudden it's like some light came into the room. Of course, what you're experiencing, of course, is what we all experienced in the 5 most amazing peak performance years that we all had, which was ages 0 to 5, when we learned nearly everything. And when people learn to do this while they work, this was such a revelation to me in my doctoral work. And I haven't seen Leslie here today, but Leslie Combs was on my doctoral committee. I met him for the first time here. What a joy. And I wanted to thank him publicly for his support, to have the freedom to pursue this as a doctoral study. Because you can learn to keep coming back to this while you work. You don't have to withdraw from this one-on-one engagement and say, pardon me while I go meditate for half an hour to put up with what you're doing. You can instead use split attention to move into the present moment, and it actually also helps integrate all the meditating you're doing and brings it forward so that it starts sticking better. This diagram didn't translate very well. The next one. The other way, Davide. So once we get people, I think we're going the wrong direction. There we go. Once we get people practicing split attention. Now, a new paradigm for selling. We call it DQ. You know about IQ and EQ. DQ is decision intelligence. And what a seller is after is improving the customer's decision intelligence. That's the job of selling. Not to pitch, manipulate, and win, and maneuver, but to increase the decision intelligence of the customer so the customer can make a decision that is the best possible one for themselves and for the business. And when that happens, business flourishes because of the quality of that engagement. What does a customer need to do? They need to discover first, what do they need to have full intelligence to make a good business decision? They need to know about what? They need to know about their needs. What is the problem they're trying to solve? And only when that is found out is it appropriate to talk about a solution. To find out their problem, they need to really go in depth into it, because I've not yet met a customer that really fully understands the depth of their problem when they start talking to a salesperson. They need a salesperson to help them learn. They need to understand the problem, and then secondly, how much it is costing them to have that problem and leave it unsolved. The third thing they need then is to understand the solution that you're offering, if you have one. And if you don't have a solution to their problems, we train people to say so and leave. The only honorable thing to do. The fourth thing that they need to understand is what is the value in currency of that solution for their business. And if it's a social enterprise, an NGO, there are quality values that matter, like the mission. When that happens, when they know all of those things, we can say they have 100% DQ. Now the interesting thing is that starting out, most customers start at most with 50% understanding of their problem. At best, 50% understanding of the solution, and usually it's a lot less. How much is that DQ? How much area are they filling up? 25%. That gap between 25 and 100 is the problem. That when sellers learn how to sell and overcome that gap, it takes a lot of skill. When they learn to do that, marvelous things happen. They actually sell at a greatly increased rate, because the process of being this way with people increases trust, increases depth, and it does even more. The results are not instantaneous. The stigma pointed out, it takes months for rewiring to happen. And that's why clients have to do their part. We do not take on a client unless they're willing to invest the time, the energy, and the money so that we can work with them for months. Intensive training is needed to help people wake up, and then months of training is needed to help them bring what they have awakened to into real practice. When that happens, very ordinary, sleepy people become extraordinary. And my experience of people out there, business people, is not that they're stupid or dense or unaware of coming calamity. They read a lot of what you write and a lot of what gets translated into the popular press, and they're scared. They just don't know what to do. So keep the research going. We'll keep the application going. Because what happens in those moments when we get this one-to-one relationship right is that people out there change. Because when they move into the present moment and operate with new practices, they awaken into another way of being that sticks, like riding a bicycle. They change their teams. They change their businesses. And that's the hope I see for our culture. So thank you for your research. Thank you for giving us something sound to work with so that we can begin to apply what Professor Jacob Needleman called a relationship with the unseen forces that shape our lives, that we may never fully understand, but which we can see. Thank you for the extra time.